Now, I would like to welcome our speaker, Aaron Hefter, our York University alumnus and co-founder of Nutrabolics. In 2002, Aaron established Nutrabolics with his business partner. Nutrabolics is a premium sports nutrition brand distributed in 50 plus countries and has sponsored some of the biggest athletes in the world. Aaron is the chief formulator at Nutrabolics and has developed over 100 unique dietary supplements. And in 2020, Aaron founded the Beauty Candy, the first ever PETA certified vegan and cruelty-free ingestible skincare brand. Aaron, we're so happy to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Diana. I appreciate the invite.
Definitely. So we want to get started with this interview and really dive in to really how you get started. Aaron, can you tell us how you first got Nutrabolics started and what made you want to start a supplement brand in the first place?
Yeah, for sure. So, Nutrabolics was started 19 years ago by my business partner, Jason Weiner, and myself. Jay and I, we both went to high school together in Richmond, British Columbia. And then I moved to Toronto to go to York University. I was taking night classes at York and managing a general nutrition center in Thornhill during the day. And Jay was working at a GNC in BC as well. So that was really our entry into the supplement industry. And we both absolutely fell in love with the industry. And we just knew we wanted to start our own business within the industry. So back then, almost 2 decades ago, at that time, there weren't many popular US brands in Canada. So we saw, a white space opportunity to create a premium, cutting edge, locally made sport nutrition brand backed by science. So at the age of 20 years old, we quit our jobs at GNC. I ended up dropping out of York University. And we pulled together $10,000 between the two of us, and we learned absolutely everything we could about supplements and manufacturing and the industry. And we did our first production run of our very first 3 products. They were called Insulin, Clenbuterol, and GH Stack. And then from there, Jason ran the operations out of his parents' house in their games room. And I drove across the country from Toronto to Vancouver, going province to province, selling the brand out of my car until I ended up back in Vancouver to run Nutrabolics with Jay.
That's so amazing. What a story and what a risk you guys took in doing that. And I'm sure there was, when you first decided to take that leap and actually make the decision to do that, I'm sure there was pushback. So was there any pushback, and how did you actually deal with that pushback?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was both externally and internally as well. My parents obviously didn't want me to drop out of university. They wanted me to do the safe thing and the right thing at the time and finish school and get a job. But that just really wasn't on my head. But also internally, it was a big risk, and it meant that I knew that I'd have to leave Toronto, go back to Vancouver, leave my friends, leave school, leave my girlfriend, start a business, with absolutely no guarantees. So, it was a very difficult decision to make, but, once that decision was made, there was definitely no turning back, we were all in.
And when you first decided to do that, like everyone needs money to start a business and to do something. How did you guys actually fund that yourselves?
Two 20-year-old kids, I think we legitimately bootstrapped it as best as anybody could, but we still needed to raise or, to find, $10,000 to really get this off the ground. So Jason sold his car, he had an old Mustang, he sold it, and he put his $5,000 in from that. And for me, I really didn't have anything. I was a struggling student, on student loans. I didn't have any assets. So I literally applied for every single credit card you could imagine until finally I got accepted. I remember from Citibank MasterCard, and I put my 5,000, on that. So a big shout out to Citibank for coming through on that.
Shout out to Citibank for sure. Yeah, I do remember those days of being a student and struggling and sort of not knowing, how to pay the bills and do all of these things. But really kudos for you to doing that. Now, what was your experience like at York? Because I know you took night classes here at York. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I was never the most studious student. School for me in high school and even in university wasn't really my passion. I just did it, because I thought I had to do it. But I definitely did enjoy the York experience and have many great memories. I mean, I think one of my greatest memories from York, actually, it involves being an entrepreneur. So after leaving GNC, there was some downtime, for a few months before we got Nutribolics started up. So, I needed money, and I ended up coming up with the idea to actually rent, a table, kiosk in York Lanes Mall, and sell popular supplements during the day when I wasn't in class. So I would literally spend all day, every day, at York Lanes Mall, in my little table there selling supplements to everybody and anybody who I could who was walking by, and I just loved the interaction. I loved the experience. And I loved, letting everybody know that, something big was coming, AKA Nutribolics.
That's so amazing to hear how you started out and you were selling in York Lanes Mall. What an amazing story. But did you always have that feeling, I guess, that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Even when you were younger, did you know?
Yeah, I think I definitely did. I mean, I know it may be a little bit cliche lately, but when I was one of those kids that was, addicted to selling sports cards growing up, and that started from like setting up tables outside my parents' home to setting up tables at the local mall to, that gradually evolved into running, an eBay type of business. So I always loved business and, making money on my own effort, and doing what needed to be done to, get it done. So I think I always felt that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, when I was younger and as I was growing up.
Now, with Nutribolics, you guys have managed to get some really big names in the industry. How did you manage to do that and get them really involved with your brand? And do all of them take Nutribolics?
That's a good question. I mean, we've been lucky enough to sponsor some of the biggest name athletes, I think in the industry. WWE champion Batista, UFC champions Anderson Silva, Shogun Rua, Frank Mir, most recently UFC champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. So, I mean, everybody always asks, how do you get them? And, the answer really isn't what I think you'd expect. I personally deal with all athlete, or celebrity relations. And in every single instance, it actually always starts with either a cold call, or a spam type email to their, to their manager, until I get through, and then I'm able to start negotiations. So, I mean, starting out, after a few years, the WWE deal, with Batista was, a really big one in our early years that really put us on the map. And I remember, just cold calling the WWE, and calling them every day for like 3 weeks straight, trying to speak to someone in their athlete relations department, until I finally got a hold of someone, and then we started negotiations. So, I mean, you really have to do what you have to do, get as guerrilla as you can. I mean, I think now with Instagram, it's definitely a lot easier. You don't have to do all that hard legwork. You can sometimes just slide in the DM, and get a response. But I mean, before Instagram, you definitely had to be resourceful and relentless, in trying to make contact with some of these big names. But I mean, to answer your question, yes, they always took Nutribolics, that having an authentic relationship, with these athletes who did take our brand was an important part of the endorsement. And I mean, in most instances, a lot of them, they still take Nutribolics to this day, even after their endorsement deals have been done.
That's really amazing. And I'm really surprised that you say cold calling because a lot of people expect that not to work. So I guess it sort of encourages people, everyday people like students, people starting out businesses, that can be a successful tactic for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I know we've got some images to share of some of the athletes that you worked with. Maybe you can talk us through some of these.
Yep. So that first one, that's a younger me, obviously. And that's with the WWE champion and current, movie star from Guardians of the Galaxy and so forth, Dave Bautista. That was his first expo appearance with us. That was at the Arnold Classic Expo in Columbus, Ohio. Just a huge event for our brand. I think we definitely had the biggest lineup at the whole entire expo for Bautista. On the right of there, it's former UFC champion and probably one of the greatest fighters of all time, Anderson Silva. I remember that fight. That was UFC 90 in Chicago. And as you can see, that was actually before the Reebok deal with UFC, where fighters were able to wear whatever, apparel they wanted into the ring, into the cage. So as you can see, I mean, his entrance shirt is Nutrabolics, and we tagged one of our top retail partners, bodybuilding.com. So, I mean, that's a great shot that I absolutely love. And then there's our most recent sponsored athlete, UFC champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov. This was actually in Moscow, Russia. So this was following the biggest expo in Moscow. It's called the SN Pro Expo. And this was a press conference that they wanted to have after the expo with Khabib. That was our distributor to the right. His name's Ilya, and there I am to the left. So just a huge event for the press, just to announce the endorsement of Khabib with Nutrabolics in Russia. And then to the right of there is UFC champion Shogun Rua. That was in Montreal after he had just beat Lyoto Machida to win the UFC belt. As you can see, he had Nutrabolics on his entrance shirt and running on his shorts. So just a great event and a great time for the brand. And then these are some images from Khabib in Russia at the biggest expo. As you can see, they're in Russian as well. So that's the back of our booth with Khabib. And that's Khabib at the top of the booth, decked out in Nutrabolics. That's just an image of myself and Khabib in Moscow. And then to the right of there is one of the POP displays that we did for retailers in Russia, with Khabib holding all of our products.
That must be such a great feeling to be a part of, all of these great, huge moments in athletes' careers, and just to have Nutrabolics associated with that and to be standing there next to them.
Absolutely.
Now, your Instagram name is Chief Formulator. I was really curious about that. Are you actually the formulator for Nutrabolics? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I am. So, I mean, I've been formulating supplements for Nutrabolics in the last 2 decades, since day one. So, I mean, now I have a team of researchers and regulatory consultants that I work with, but I'm the chief formulator responsible for all product formulations. And yeah, I mean, it's great. It's one of a big passion of mine. It's definitely one of the most enjoyable things that I get to do. I love researching new ingredients and bringing new ingredients and new products to the market. And yeah, every new product that we launch, it definitely feels like one of my babies.
Yeah, it must be so rewarding to you to actually be the creator of your products and not have someone else, working on it for you. It's all you, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're the biggest retailer in Canada. They're called Popeye Supplements. They have 160 different locations, and for 2 out of the last 3 years, our BCAA product, Anabolic State, has won Gold Overall Product of the Year from Popeyes. So, meaning out of every single product from any single brand, worldwide in the industry, this product that I formulated from our brand, is the best overall product and the biggest retailer in the country. So, that was definitely a great feeling.
That's so amazing. Now, we all hear stories about entrepreneurs working crazy hours, nonstop. Can you tell us what a typical day is for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a very type A personality, so I think my work week is very structured and routine. Typically, I wake up at 7 a.m. I spend an hour going through emails from the night before, and I'll take my favorite Nutrabolics products and do some cardio for the morning. And then I spend the day doing, high level Nutrabolics work and dealing with all of our key global distribution partners. And then I work on my new startup, which is the Beauty Candy, which, currently that involves Zooms with my new team just to ensure that everything is progressing as we get close to launch, as well as Zooms with different venture capital firms, related to fundraising for the company. So It's definitely a full day's work. In the evening, I try to get caught up on LinkedIn and Instagram and all that good stuff. But, I usually put in a good 10 to 12 hours, work day.
Now, you mentioned the beauty candy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you have planned?
Yep. So the the beauty candy, it's my new startup with my new partner, Felicia Hershenhorn, who was a lawyer before. We just saw a real opportunity in the beauty space for an opening in ingestible beauty, which is something that I really believe in, beauty from within. So it's a plant-based ingestible skincare brand. We're the first brand actually in the whole ingestible space to get PETA certified. So we're PETA certified, vegan and cruelty free. It comes in a delicious gummy format. It's 100% plant-based. There's zero sugar, zero gluten, zero GMO. There's no artificial colors, sweeteners, or dyes. And the whole brand revolves around skincare and plant-based skincare. So, products and formulations for skin hydration, gut health, anti-aging, hormonal acne. It's pretty exciting. I'm a huge believer in the ingestible space, and we're going to be first to market here in Canada. The plan is to make the beauty candy one of the biggest ingestible beauty brands worldwide. So we launch very soon, April 1st. The brand's going to be sold direct to consumer via our website, but also in the clean beauty channels, so Sephora or Goop or the detox market. And then in luxury retail like Saks and Neiman Marcus, anywhere you would find, premium cosmetic products.
That's so cool. And I really do love that name, the beauty candy. So really excited to see that on shelves. Now, can you tell me how you manage your work-life balance and what advice would you give for entrepreneurs struggling with this?
I think, when you're passionate about what you're doing, it's easy to get lost in your job, but, work-life balance is obviously very important, for, I think, even just staying sane. I have an amazing son and a great girlfriend, and I cherish my time with both of them. And, I typically, make sure that I take weekends off, just to have that downtime. So it's not 24/7. So you do have that workplace balance.
Now, you've had so much success in your career so far, but was there ever a moment that you wanted to give up?
Being an entrepreneur, there's always ups and downs, literally every single day. They like to say as an entrepreneur, you're a firefighter, because you're constantly putting out fires. And that really is true, but it's really just all part of the process and the journey, So I think as an entrepreneur, you really have to be able to overcome rejection extremely well, and if that's not in your DNA, then you're going to have an extremely difficult time, being an entrepreneur. But, have I ever thought about giving up? No.
That's really inspiring to hear. And I'm sure for many of the entrepreneurs joining us today, it is really encouraging to hear as well. For the audience members that have an idea that they would like to pursue, what do you think their first step should be?
I think the first step is to really ensure that this truly is your passion, and make sure you are absolutely dedicated and completely passionate about the industry that you're looking to enter, and if it's a product, the product that you're going to be creating, and then once you are certain about that and you've nailed that down, all I can recommend is to learn everything you can about that industry and just to become an absolute expert in it.
Now, my last question for you, because I do want to be mindful of the time, is do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets? Actually, that's a funny story. So as I mentioned, Nutrabolics, we've sponsored some of the top UFC champions. But there was this one point, many years ago, actually, that our former social media manager showed me an article of an up and coming fighter that she thought looked, really promising. And that fighter was, this is a funny story. That fighter was Conor McGregor. And this was before Conor McGregor was Conor McGregor, and no one knew who he was, and I ended up finding the contact info for his manager, who's the same manager that he has right now, and starting discussions, about sponsoring him for Nutrabolics. And, we went back and forth on email, and we were off by literally a few $100s per month, which is, crazy looking back, but in the end I said no, and the deal didn't happen, and so Conor would end up becoming, one of the biggest stars on the planet, so not signing him to Nutrabolics is definitely something that I'll always regret, but in the end, Conor fought, our fighter, our athlete Khabib, and Khabib won. So that was a little bit bittersweet for me and the brand.
That's so crazy. And yes, I definitely know who Conor McGregor is. I'm not into sports at all, but I know who he is. And wow, for a few $100s, what a story. But I'm sure it happens. It happens sometimes. And there's no way of really knowing and seeing into the future. But it's very crazy. And it is a good story to tell now, right?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for your answers to these questions. It really, really did give us some good insight into your story and your entire journey so far. But what I'd like to do now is invite our entrepreneurs panel on screen, because I know they're very anxious to ask you their own questions that they have. So we have three entrepreneurs who are joining us today as a part of the panel. So I'll welcome them all to join us on screen. So feel free to turn on your camera so we can all see you and unmute your mics. Welcome, everyone. So we have Joanne, who is an alumni engagement officer here at York. Outside of work, she's also an avid crafter. And together with her mom, in response to the pandemic, she actually launched Shop Lily and Joe to share handmade face masks and matching hair scrunchies to ensure that folks are staying safe while also staying stylish. We also have Matthias Doss, a fourth-year commerce student specializing in accounting and also pursuing a certificate of proficiency in Spanish. He's also a president's ambassador. And last but not least, we have Priyan, who is a third-year student pursuing a BA in economics with a minor in statistics and also a president's ambassador. Welcome, everyone. So Joanne, I can get you to start off by asking Aaron your first question.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you so much, Aaron, for your insights. I really feel inspired by your drive and passion and appreciate your answers and also the stories that you shared working with MMA fighters as a fan as well. They were really cool. So as Diana mentioned, I recently launched our shop with my mom to provide face masks and accessories that provide protection, comfort, and style. We're in the early stages, and right now we're focusing on growth and expanding our network and reach. So I'm curious to hear more about how social media marketing played a role in your journey as an entrepreneur. Are there any tips and tricks that you can share in terms of how we can best learn to leverage it for growth? And also, I'm curious to see what future trends do you see as well?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. 20 years ago, there was obviously no Instagram or TikTok or Clubhouse or Facebook, so as an entrepreneur today, I think you're definitely living in the best age to be an entrepreneur. The world is so small. You can start and market and grow a business literally from your bed, so, I'm not an Instagram star by any means, but I do have a good amount of retailers and distributors and even, customers who follow my page. And I know, when I take the time and effort to post and promote a new product launch, these people will notice. And I hear from our distributors that they get calls the moment I do post, so that's a really powerful free tool at your disposal that you need to take advantage of, and not just put up, like highly refined content, but just put up content, like just as much content as you possibly can. I think beyond marketing, I think accessibility to your customers is as easy as it's ever been on platforms like LinkedIn. I'm addicted to LinkedIn. I think it's just the most amazing platform for like business to business. You literally can find any lead you want. just by typing their name and then sending them a message, you know, and if they don't respond, you can go to a platform like Rocket Reach, type in their name, find their email address, you know, and then if they don't respond to that, there's even platforms right now where you can just find people's direct mobile numbers and call them. Like it's just amazing the accessibility you have right now to run a business. You know, and as a CEO, I think you really have no excuses. You know, the tools are at your fingertips and you just have to be relentless and use everything that you have.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, definitely social media is so important these days, and just having that presence is really vital, just like having a website. So really, really great question, Joanne. Matthias, you are up next. You can go ahead and ask your question for Aaron.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aaron, for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time and giving some insights to us. As an aspiring entrepreneur, I really appreciate that. My question is, I know that your company has sponsored quite a few high-level athletes. Do you have any crazy stories involving any of them?
Good question, and I actually do. Especially if you're an MMA fan, you'll appreciate this one. It involves, you know, former UFC champ Anderson Silva. So, you know, we had just finalized our Nutrabolics contract with Anderson, and as part of the contract, he was set to do a set amount of retail appearances for us. You know, and these appearances were worth their weight in gold, you know, and I obviously booked these appearances right away after we signed him. And we actually planned a Canadian retail tour starting out west at Popeye Supplements. So we promoted the tour, you know, extremely heavily. It was the first time Anderson was coming to Vancouver. There was a ton of excitement for it. And then the night before the event, or the first event in Kamloops, BC, I actually got a call from Anderson's manager, Ed Suarez, and he told me that Anderson can't come. He said that the Canadian Border Patrol weren't allowing him into the country and there was no way around it. So, yeah, I mean, it was, you know, unreal feeling, you know, but I mean, at that point, you know, there was no giving up. You know, I literally spent the whole entire evening calling every single contact I had who was tied to the UFC, trying to get another top fighter to come. And finally, I got Kenny Florian. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ken Flo, but we flew Kenny on a red eye to Kamloops for the event. I ended up flying in as well. And I just remember getting there and there were just hundreds and hundreds of people waiting outside of Popeye's in Kamloops. Everybody's thinking they're going to see UFC champion Anderson Silva, you know, and I just remember, you know, having to get on the loudspeaker and tell everybody Anderson's not coming, you know, and I mean, it was almost a riot, you know. It was as crazy of a scene as I've seen. You know, lots of unhappy fans, but Kenny was an amazing trooper and did a great job on the tour. And then we ended up getting Anderson to come back a few months later, you know, so for the appearance. So, but yeah, definitely a crazy experience to deal with for sure.
Definitely, you always have to be on your toes when you're an entrepreneur and always have that plan B for sure. Thank you, Matthias, for that question. So last up, we have Priyan. So Priyan, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you for sharing your entrepreneurial journey with us. It's really inspiring to just see, you know, how Nutrabolics, as you know, once you founded it, it's evolved. My question to you today is like, since I am interested in learning more about, you know, the sport nutrition market, I wanted to know how different is the plant-based ingestible beauty market? How different is it to the sport nutrition market, and you know, how different is your approach to it?
Yeah, so I mean, completely different, you know, which is why I get so excited, you know, every day for it. You know, it really is a new challenge, you know, and every day is a new learning experience. You know, pre-COVID, I probably spent much more time in Sephora than I probably should, you know, but I did everything I could to learn up about the space and, you know, become as close to an expert in it as I could be, you know. So, but I mean, in the end, our approach to the beauty candy is the same approach as it's always been for Nutrabolics, and that is come out with the absolute best products you can make and people will buy them and come back for more. So, I mean, that's our game plan.
Thank you so much for that. And I really do want to thank our entire panel today for joining us and asking your question for Aaron. So thank you so much for taking the time. We really do hope to see you at our future events. So what I'd like to do now is open up our question period to our audience members joining us today. So just as a reminder, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to type in your question for Aaron. So our first question is coming from Nazila. So Nazila is asking, what is your main source of financing as the business grew? Loans, investors, equity, non-equity? Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so Nutribolics, it was just myself and Jason. We started it, self-funded it, with $10,000 between the two of us, and it's still a private business today after 20 years. That again, it's just between the two of us. We never raised any funding. We just built the brand from the ground up. A big part of our, our plan for such was just our plan on where to sell and how to sell the products. So, we became a really big we had an international focus from day one, because we knew that, selling domestically, there was the possibility that you're going to have to extend terms to customers, and deal with such. But when you export products and you sell international, typically, at least back then, it's always prepaid, so it was money coming in, product coming out. And for us, it was the best business decision we could make to really bring equity into the company and grow it naturally and organically.
That's so great. Now we have another question about finding a business partner. Do you have any advice for doing that? Because I know a lot of our entrepreneurs here are looking for a co-founder, and how do they actually go about doing that?
Yeah, I think finding a business partner is a great idea. I mean, he really can't, or I think it's extremely hard to do everything on your own. My recommendation in finding a business partner, and I've had a business partner for 20 years with Nutribolics. I have a new one right now with the Beauty Candy, is just to find someone who does the things that you don't do well, or the things that you don't want to do. So with Nutribolics, I specialize in sales and formulations, and I think relationships, whereas my business partner focuses on marketing and operations. So we both stay in our own lanes. We both respect each other's abilities and capabilities. So it's been a really harmonious partnership. So I think if you and your partner are both great at one same thing, there's going to be a lot of overlap, and it might not be the most harmonious business decision.
And we have another question coming from our audience. What is your advice for founders looking to break into the CPG space? Because you've done such a very good job of doing that. So what is your advice for that?
I think it's, again, I mean, you have to be passionate about it, but you have to find that white space, that opportunity, that you think that there is a potential to sell to, So for us with the Beauty Candy, I mean, ingestible beauty has been a real growing trend in the US, but it hasn't, it's huge in Sephora or Ulta or Goop in the US, but it hasn't hit Canada, So, I mean, we'll be first to market, which is a big opportunity, but it's also for us, it's about going even hyper focused beyond that, and targeting not just beauty or wellness, but targeting skincare, and being the first to market, globally in that space. So, I mean, finding a white space and opportunity that you think you can fill a void and just really attacking it as best as you can.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you actually decided to dive into the beauty industry, because that, I assume, is very different from the sports industry that you're in.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, it's like, I'm a big proponent of natural and all natural, and plant-based. And it's, I look at the beauty space and it's just, to me, there's just a ton of potential there. I look at some of the formulations of leading brands and they're filled with parabens and artificial ingredients, and just stuff that's not good for you, and it's, and then, there's also issues with oxidization and absorption, and I think there's there's a real opportunity, to do something different, with ingestibles, and something that I think is even superior. So, I mean, it was just an exciting time, an exciting opportunity.
Now I see a few more questions from our audience members. So the next question is coming from Hajis Hassan, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I'm not, I do apologize. How do you stay so humble and down to earth with all of the success and financial achievements?
That's a good question. I think it's just your personality, right? I think being an owner operator, and still dealing with the same things now 20 years later, and still getting excited about it. I mean, I'm just having fun with it, so I'm still having fun with it. So that's a great question. And I think that's a recipe for success, is staying humble, and staying motivated, and just keeping your eye on the prize, and I think business and entrepreneurship, it's a marathon, it's not a race, and it's a long-term process, and you really do have to stay humble through that entire process to make it to the end. I think, as a brand, Nutribolics, we're now considered, a top legacy brand. We've stood the test of time, where a lot of other brands have failed, or gone bankrupt, or have not been able to pivot and adapt out of situations. And it's just about, staying humble and staying true to yourself and your brand.
That's so important. We do have another question coming from Denise, and she's asking, how much money do you think is best to start your business with? Because I know you guys mentioned in the beginning that you only had about $5,000 each on your credit cards.
Yeah, I think it all depends. I think that the money to start a retail store is different than the money to start a brand is the different, to start a blog. It all depends on what business or what type of business you're starting. I would just, recommend bootstrapping it as best as you can, and budgeting as best as you can, and, acting like a student, as best as you can, and until it takes time. I remember those early years, it was a good 2-3 years, of slumming it, at Nutribolics, like eating canned tuna, and watching every single penny, and just like monitoring, sleeping in a tiny little room, and just monitoring our finances, and just waiting for that big break, but always knowing that we would hit that break. So it's like, it's like I said, it's a marathon. You've gotta respect your finances and budget as best as you can. You could start a brand right now for $5,000. You could start a brand for $100,000. It's all about how you do it.
Definitely. It obviously doesn't happen overnight, so you definitely need to have patience with that. I have time for 2 more questions. Next one is, how many employees do you have, and where do you get your products made?
So at Nutribolics, we have about a dozen employees. We do a lot of outsourcing. So we outsource a lot of our work, our warehousing and so forth. All of our products are made in North America. So we have a different manufacturer for proteins. We have a different manufacturer for our sports powders and pills. And we have a different manufacturer for our protein bars. And we'll have a different manufacturer for our upcoming functional beverage. So it's just specialists in every category, who I think are some of the best in the world at what they do.
I see one more question, and it's perfect because we only have time for one more question. So it's coming from Samira. Did you have any technical knowledge of developing supplements prior, or did you learn while working on the business?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I've learned everything in terms of formulating, just self-taught. PubMed, which is gives you access to every published study you can think of, is a great resource. If you're trying to get into the industry, and you're starting out, but it's all self-taught, and then working with specialists who are specialists in formulations and regulations to work alongside myself to help bring products to market.
That's so great. And I'm afraid that's all the time we have for our audience Q&A, but thank you to our audience member and panelists for submitting your questions for Aaron. And Aaron, I do want to take a moment to really thank you for being here and sharing your story with us. It was really inspiring to hear how you did take that leap and you actually, believed in yourself and you had that passion and it's so inspiring to hear that. And I'm sure it's inspiring for many of our audience members who are joining us today. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Diana. I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody.
Definitely, Aaron. And you're always welcome to come back anytime and share your new developments. Definitely want to hear more about the beauty candy as well. Really excited for that.